Do you ever feel the need to take yourself out of the hustle, bustle, angst and busy society? I do. I get a profound feeling of escape. I just feel like sometimes towns feel like it's the madness of crowds. There's like, it's busy, it's noisy. And I also feel sometimes that there's a feeling of animosity between people. I don't know whether that's real or whether that's imaginary, because I myself find busy places quite intimidating. And I think a lot of this feeling that there is anger and contempt and hate within society just comes from social media and the mainstream media. I don't know whether it's actually real or whether it's just projection, but I do like to get away from the hustle and bustle and madness of crowds. We're given the impression that confrontation is not only acceptable, but desirable. Now, I'm not saying that you get complete tranquility out in the countryside. Far from it sometimes. Why are we a species of creatures that seem programmed to make noise? Even out in the countryside, it's difficult to find tranquility. There will always be somebody shouting at a dog, Rover, 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 constantly, non-stop, and they always have to do it in the loudest, most piercing voice they possibly can. And then there are those people with those high-pitched blooming dog whistles. They just cut through. And I've noticed that they use them when they can see the dog or the dog's walking with them, but they still use it. Two things that annoys the hell out of me and must confuse the hell out of the dog. Now it happens so often that I don't know whether there are actually a lot of people with these whistles or whether there's just a couple of people who use them a lot. Now, noise inside town centres is not only acceptable, but it would be downright weird to have a town centre without noise. Can you imagine walking in a city or a large town and all you can hear is bird song, the sound of leaves and dog whistles and somebody shouting for Rover? It just wouldn't sound nice. Just like the countryside, if you went out into the countryside, found somewhere remote, but all you could hear was traffic noise and crowds. There's a distinct separation in environments, and it's a desirable separation as far as I am concerned. So just as constant noise in the countryside and constant silence in a town centre would feel odd, the lines between the two are coming increasingly more blurred. Now, I think this is inevitable because the cost of travel, the logistics at airports, the number of people who want to travel. Nobody wants to start a journey in a 2-hour queue. It all seems, and people actually do seem to want to connect back with nature. This is becoming an increasing trend. So it's inevitable that more people are going to come out into the countryside. Well, there's a code of conduct, just like there's a code of conduct anywhere, in a town, in a city. It's not acceptable to go around spitting on the street. It's not acceptable to fall about drunk and fight. It happens, and it seems to happen more and more all the time. But it's not acceptable. Just because it happens doesn't mean it's acceptable. And this goes for the countryside as well. There are levels of behaviour that we should try to stick to if we just all want to get on together. Now, I'm no prude or partisan protector of the countryside or avaricious monoculturalist who wants to keep the countryside to me and my mates. I'm just somebody who's enjoyed the countryside all my life, and I want to keep it as pristine as it should be. I want everyone to come out and enjoy it. But I want habits within the countryside to be natural, like picking up litter was once upon a time. I live simply and at a slower pace as I can achieve without inconveniencing anyone else. This is usually important to my style of slow living. It's the very essence of my style of slow living. Slow living doesn't always require wide open spaces and peace and quiet. It's just always been my anchor to float around. The countryside for me is just a common denominator in my life. It could be lavish surroundings if you're out to create wealth. It could be a workshop environment with oily wood shaving fragrance. If your passion is creating art from dead trees, you get me drift anyway. Countryside is the adhesive that holds the rest of my life within its orbit. We all have an adhesive, unless we drift aimlessly. I want everyone who wants access to nature to gain access to nature, but I also want everyone who gains access to nature to respect nature, to revere nature. So often, you get people who want to come out into the countryside. So often I see groups of people, 6, 8, 10 people walking out into the countryside, and they've got huge bags each, and I know what they're doing. They're going out, they're having a barbecue somewhere, and so often they do that. I used to be a wild camper, and the whole ethos of wild camping is that you never left a trace. You could go to a site where you'd wild camped after you'd gone, and you wouldn't be able to see any trace of you being there. But I go to where these people have been after they've left, and there are burnt patches of ground where they've had barbecues, incredible amount of litter, and not only in the countryside, it's not just an inconvenience, but litter, glass, plastics. There are animals out here that will ingest that kind of stuff and it will kill them. Think about that next time you go out into the countryside. By all means, gain access to the countryside. By all means, enjoy it. It's a beautiful recreational area for everyone, not only here but across the globe. Everyone should have access to nature. It's so good for the soul, good for the mind, good for companionship. How many times do you see people out in nature running together, walking together, chatting together, never arguing together? Have you noticed that when people are out in the countryside walking, the conversation always seems to be light and inconsequential and bright and trivial? And so it should, because those are the things that feed the mind and feed the consciousness and keep us grounded and keep us the people we should be, the people we should aspire to be. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful resource. And I'm afraid that it's going the wrong way. If you want to be rowdy, if you want to party, there are plenty of places to go. Even the Spanish don't want us there anymore. What does that say of us as a people? I don't want to go to Benidorm. Most of the people who come out here into the countryside, the walkers, the dog walkers, the horse riders, the runners, the cyclists, come here for a reason. They come here for the peace and quiet and the non-threatening environment, a place where they can let the kids and their animals run free, where we pick our litter up, where we respect each other. We pass the time with our fellow man, even if one of the reasons we're here is to avoid our fellow man. That's what the countryside does to you. It makes you a better human being. The countryside is always there when I wake up, not physically, because I have to travel out to it, but mentally. It's the first thing I do. It's the first thing I think about. I get up in the morning, have a coffee, and that's just a preparation for getting up and going out into the countryside. And it's something I look forward to, but it's also something that has become the norm. And it's part of my slow, peaceful life. It starts the day in peace and quiet. It starts the day in nature. I come out here, I see deer, I hear the bird song, I smell the countryside, I look at the sky and the clouds and the trees. And all this before I start my day. What else can it do but put you in a good mood, a good start to the day? It's fabulous. More people should do it. And if you can't get out into the countryside, get out into the environment that you, in particular, you as an individual like. It may be just the shed at the bottom of the garden where you have your bits of a hobby. It might be a chair in a certain room with a view out of the window where you can sit and read. It may be just sitting in the quiet before you start the day. But do something before you start your day. Don't just get up and bound into the day. The day needs preparation. And we can all find the time. Okay, I've got plenty of time because I'm retired. But we can all find the time. I wasn't born retired. I worked for 50 years. But this is what I did. And this is what I always did. There was always some preparation before the day. And it got into an habit and a routine and became something I don't think about. I don't think about it. I'm not doing it thinking this is my preparation for the day. It's just a routine. But it does prepare me for the day. And I know that I will get in the car and go home. And I will be able to kind of look at jobs I've got to do, confront any problems that I might have with a more peaceful, more settled, more constructive mindset. As the great British philosopher Stephen Marriott once wrote, life is just a bowl of All-Bran. You wake up every morning and it's there. We shall see you on the flip. Thank you for joining us on our little walk this morning. Peace and love.
It's just a bowl of All-Bran. You wake up every morning and it's there.